And now it is time for the Patriot Church, hosted by Pastor John Vacchiano.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday morning again. Welcome to Patriot Church Radio. I am your blessed host, Reverend Dr. John Vacchiano, and I'm glad you are here. Looking forward to all you lovers of God, country, and family tuning in this morning. Again, we have another candidate this morning, a friend of mine, Isidoro. Everybody knows him as Izzy Castro. He's running for state committee man in Indian River County, so he'll be on the ballot coming up this August, so we want to get talking to him a bit. But first, let's go ahead and give you some announcements to start out with. Well, we'll put the announcements a little bit later because you're going to be a part of some of those announcements, and you may have some too as far as the calendar goes. Let me get right into our Patriot moment, or whatever you guys like to call. You know, every time I do a study, whether it's our Tuesday night Bible study or Wednesday night Constitution study, or here on the radio show, I always like to tune in with some kind of Patriot history moment to remind us of our history, because we cannot forget where we've come from and what the truth of the history is. So this happens to be exactly for today, May 15th. In history, May 15th, 1800, President Adams at the time moved the federal government from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. Thought that was kind of cool. He moved that on that day, May 15th, 1800, and the move was, they say, was relatively quick. And some of the most important documents, you've heard some different news reports about presidential documents, all that, where they are stored and what's happened with them. These were not, of course, in the garage with a Corvette. These were brought to Washington by ship. And, of course, Adams had ordered his cabinet to ensure every office would be operating as usual in Washington, D.C. within a month. Thought that was pretty interesting. The plan happened as planned, and Philadelphia officially ceased serving as the nation's capital as of June 11th, 1800. So the move began in May, this day, 1800, and it finished by June 11th, which is pretty quick. To see the government move that quick, brother, that's pretty interesting, right? So the move was swift due to part of the small size of government at the time, and this is really what caught my attention with this article. Take a guess. What do you think? If I could have you guys respond this morning, if I could see you doing it. But if you were to have a guess of how many employees or how many were employed by the federal government in 1800, what would you say? How many people would you say? You know?
300.
300. That's pretty close. Only 125. 125. Today, according to the Office of Personnel Management's website, do you know how many people are employed by the government today? Take another wild guess.
3 million.
Close. Over 2 million. Over 2 million people. So, and this all began back when President George Washington, of course, was in office. He signed what was called the Residence Act on July 16, 1790. And that established that a capital city would be built along the Potomac River. And, of course, he also said that city had not yet been constructed. Of course, Philadelphia was declared a temporary capital city, and he had a 10-year plan. And, boy, they were right on the numbers as far as finishing that. The proclamation was given back on January 24th, 1791. The location became known as the District of Columbia. And here's some of the wording in that proclamation. They were thereby authorized and required on the behalf of the said state to cede to the Congress of the United States any district in the said state not exceeding 10 square miles, which the Congress might fix upon and accept for the government of the United States, said Washington in his proclamation. So that, of course, was really interesting. And they also said in that proclamation, Washington explained where the District of Columbia would be located. And of course, him and Jefferson and others were master, what do they call it, surveyors and things like that. He articulated permissions to survey the land, create the boundaries, and of course, anybody remember the name of the French engineer who was put to task on the whole event? You may have heard. You have to go back to maybe 8th grade U.S. history for this one, but that was Pierre Charles L'Enfant, and he was the one who helped with the design and everything. So now, although the District of Columbia, this article goes, officially was the capital of the United States, many of its famous landmarks were still under construction. President Adams and his wife Abigail didn't move into what is now known as the White House until later in 1800. And when Adams and his wife first moved on June 3rd, they lived temporarily in a place called Union Tavern in Georgetown. And Adams wrote in the White House, and this is what another great thought of history. Sometimes people read over these things. Some revisionist history books don't even put this in there anymore. But listen to this. Adams wrote to his wife as they moved in. He wrote about the White House residence. And he said this is a quote. He says, "I pray heaven to bestow the best of blessings on this house," talking about the White House, right? And then he says, "and on all that shall hereafter inhabit it. May none but wise men ever rule under this roof." Isn't that powerful? That's your second president of the United States. So at that point, the Senate side of the Capitol building was complete. Nothing else was complete yet. It took until 1811 to finish the House of Representatives. And so pretty powerful, pretty interesting story about the foundation of our country again. But I love that prayer. And boy, could we not get back to that prayer again today. May none but wise men and women ever rule under that roof. Wow, we need some godly wisdom today to fall upon our chambers, our House and our Senate for sure. So, welcome, Izzy, to Patriot Church Radio. We're excited to have you, and we've been bringing on candidates each week, trying to get to know you, get your information out there for people, so they can make good and wise choices, right? As far as this election, this is really important. This election coming up, folks. Especially our primary on August 20th. So make sure that you check out your voting record. Make sure that everything is up to par on that there isn't any things that are out of place. You can go to the SOE website, voteindianriver.org to check that out. We can help you do that if you need help. And then also, if you are an NPA, or maybe you haven't picked a party in particular, say you decide to be a non-party affiliate, remember that you won't be able to vote in the primary. So you got to get that changed over to your Republican choice. I'm sure that's what most watching the show will be of that persuasion. But again, Izzy, thanks for being here. Give us a little history, a little background about yourself, and where you're from, and all that good stuff.
Okay. I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
1960. Didn't stay there too long. Actually, my grandfather had a summer home out in Port Washington, and my parents at the time drifted in that direction. They wanted to get out of the city even then. But the thing is that house was a summer house. They had to renovate it, making
Right.
it all year-round house, and they got that accomplished in 1960. Grew up in a very small town, very similar to Sebastian, called Port Washington, New York, an incorporated village of Manor Haven, which is like Sebastian, or was like Sebastian. It's sort of filled in a lot more now and is a little more crowded, but got to know everybody, was very enjoyable, made a lot of friends and relationships through high school, junior high school, actually elementary school, junior high school, and into high school. Graduated in 1978 from Schreiber High School in Port Washington, moved on to college and graduated in 1984, and actually started a lawn cutting business in the summers, and eventually met my wife, Mary, May 15th, 1981. So didn't get married then, dated for a while. but I know her for a very long time, and she actually is my best friend. She became a business partner and somebody I can lean on a lot. And we have two lovely children that are still residing in New York. And was thinking about retiring when I was 62, but that date got pushed up some when COVID-19 hit in 2020, and New York basically got locked down. And I don't know if I could explain it. It was a very eerie time for all of us living up there. You actually felt that you couldn't move around. Stores, businesses were getting closed. And I had a lot of empathy at the time and actually went to a rally up in Albany, New York for businesses to sort of lobby for them to remain open. Even though in all of that, I found out my business was essential. From Governor Cuomo, we got a letter saying so, and we were able to operate. But I really felt bad for all the mom pop businesses that were shut down. And in the back of my head, I don't understand. It was just a strange time, you know. Liquor stores were open. We all know sort of what transpired. And I know here in Florida, looking in, Governor DeSantis was raving how Florida was open. And so I decided to sell my business and to National Waste and became a Florida resident. And haven't looked back since. Love Florida. Looked amazing from the outside. I loved the way the politics were wide open down here, and he didn't crush small businesses, because if he did that down here, I don't think we'd have much left. So,
so you liked what you saw here in Florida,
Yes.
and you guys made a.
It was a huge jump.
Yeah.
Didn't know anybody. Started in Point St. Lucie looking for a home. Eventually, it was a little too crowded, so we worked our way up and somehow put a lot of faith in real estate brokers, and they led me to Sebastian and met a lot of people. Decided to get involved in the Republican Party.
So after you moved down, so the first real, you kind of, the last, the straw that broke the camel's back was the shutdown. Really, you saw what went on with COVID. You knew that that wasn't how you should be living, and you said, "Hey, we got to go to Florida." We saw that Florida was relatively open for the most part. There were some restaurants and things that had, and some counties that were doing some things in particular. But I think for the most part, we could certainly say we were open for the most part. That gets you down here. And then you say what to yourself,
Well, I said it's great to slow down. Sat by the pool for a little bit.
Yeah.
Went to the beach, loved the ocean. Eventually found pickleball. I still enjoy that. Made friends in that as well. And then decided to join the Republicans and got my feet wet in the meetings and made a lot of friends. And basically, I really want to make a difference. I do have good networking skills. I have an open mind. I tend to think from a wide angle. I don't like tunnel vision. I don't believe in stereotypes. It almost seems like that's pretty normal these days. I remember going into school and being taught that should not happen, and how we've drifted over time. But so a position opened up as far as a state committee man, and I just got voted on May 1st, and they elected me, and I want to give back to our community. And here I am, so to speak.
So, so I was at the meeting, of course, and most folks know I'm the chairman of the party. So you'd be part of, now that you're state committee man, part of what we call the state executive committee, which includes the chairman of each county, the state committee man, and the state committee woman. So 3 from each county, 67 counties in Florida. And you were voted on and unanimously, by the way. I want to make sure everybody knows that. And that's to finish up the term for the state committee man. And then on August 20th, you're on that ballot.
Yes.
And that's a 4-year term. So it's a little bit different than the chairman's role of what to do and so forth. I just wanted to get back for a second because something was going on, I would say, in your mind. You're in this state, it's a lockdown. You know it's not right. Everything, all your senses are telling you this is crazy. We got to get out of here. You come down here, you're in Florida, and then you realize was there something in particular that just kind of told you, hey, I got to get involved somehow because I don't want to see Florida, because it could very easily. You see how a lot of the lefties, a lot of liberals are moving as well to try to turn. There's a big movement trying to turn Texas blue, and so they move in different locations to, of course, try to make a difference for what we would say the negative way, to make it more liberal. You, on the other hand, are saying, hey, we're going to come to Florida and we're gonna get involved and be able to be part of that fight that protects what Florida is.
Well, what makes Sebastian and Indian River County in general an amazing area is that you don't just have people from New York coming here. You have people from all parts of America. And I've had an opportunity to pick the brains of a lot of people and hear a lot of people. And I just think it's an amazing opportunity to bring us together. And it needs to be done, not so much for me. This position is an unpaid position, but I kind of want to give back because there's so many areas in our country that have to be healed. I don't think there needs to be, people get stuck a lot, and I think that if I can listen to some of the things that are happening, even within our party ourselves, and broker a better relationship, and try to all get on the same page and work towards a common goal, because that's really what the Republican Party needs to be.
Sure. There is a big picture that we need to see.
Yes.
There's a lot of differences, a lot of opinions, a lot of personalities, and boy, it's been an interesting ride for me to try to navigate all those and try to bring all those different folks together. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work, and it's unfortunate because I think when it doesn't work, we forget to look at the big picture. The big picture is obviously, the August 20th primary, but then of course ultimately the presidential election, and and it's really interesting to see this back and forth, the left speaking versus, we'll say, the right speaking, and you get people on the left saying this is a battle. They're saying the same statements that basically I would say, or we're saying on this side, it's a battle for democracy, and this is the most important election of our lifetime, and and each side has their narrative. So you get involved, you come down, you get involved, and you begin to go to different groups, different clubs. You get involved, and tell us a little bit about that. How that kind of formed where you are, because it brings you all to this point to today.
Basically, it's my job to be the liaison from the state down to the local level. So it's imperative for me to hear all sides. And even in this election, remain neutral with all people that are running. So regardless of what happens and who gets in there, I need to know if they have questions, and I need to find the people up at the state level that could give me the answers and bridge the gaps. Also, I was out at a function last night, at a young Republican function, and I had suggested to some of the younger Republicans who do want to get involved that it offers them an opportunity as well to come in as a guest under somebody like myself, and get their feet wet at the state level and see whether or not this position would be right for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it offers a lot of flexibility. I like that part of it. You get to meet everybody in the community and build relationships,
Mm-hmm.
because I know I could do that.
Yeah. So you've already been to a quarterly meeting. So you were elected, I think it was on May 1st, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, that first Wednesday of May. And then that weekend, that Friday and Saturday, we actually had a quarterly meeting, which is our state executive committee for the Republican Party of Florida. We meet on a quarterly basis, and that happened to be. So you were thrown right into it.
Yes.
Any thoughts about how that whole experience was there?
No, it was pretty amazing.
A lot of the folks on the local level have no idea sometimes what those events are. Some like to go, can go as a guest. You have to
Yes.
be invited as a guest, put you on a list, that whole thing. This summer was great. We had some big events over there in Orlando. So what do you?
Yeah,
what's
I
some
think
thoughts?
it's imperative that we connect with our state officials and basically kind of know where they're coming from and where they're moving to. It's not an option, in my opinion, for any of us to stay on the sidelines if we want to keep America
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
This is not just for Florida, this is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If we have civilians or business people step up, I think that a lot of good could come from it, and we can make everywhere great
Right.
again. But people need to understand that they have to take their part. They have to put back into the country, just like our founders did. We're at a pinnacle in our world where certain people want it to go one way,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of patriots that want it to go another way.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're at. And I'm excited to get involved on committees at the state level and really bridge a gap here
Right.
down to the
Right.
local.
So after you came down, you started meeting some people. You started going to some meetings and meeting folks, and just kind of getting like what you love to do, like I said, meet people. Was there a particular point in a meeting or something that said, okay, look, I got an opportunity here. This opportunity to run for state committee man came up. Were you approached by some folks to say, hey, this might be a good spot for you to fill in and run? Is there something that said, okay, now I can go to another level and go a little deeper in my engagement of what's going on in my community?
Yeah, actually, I had a conversation with Annie Delgado about it and others to see whether or not they felt that I could do it. It's actually, I've never had touch in the political arena,
Right.
But was not afraid of it by any stretch or any form. And she said that you've been doing it all along, you've been here, and I kind of have.
Right.
Because in order to meet people, you have to volunteer.
Right.
My wife got me involved in a few things, and I met people that way. And I just think it's kind of a perfect fit for me. And we'll see where it leads.
Nice. Yeah, it's a big deal. And this is, again, as are all our positions at the Republican Executive Committee here. We are all volunteers, of course. We don't even get reimbursed for expenses. So, so that's we sacrifice. We sacrifice because we want to make a difference. We sacrifice because we have beliefs we want to, of course, be able to pass on and instill in our children, our grandkids. What are some of your maybe some of your foundational beliefs, things that you just say, hey, look, I can't waver on this kind of thing. There's any particulars that you want to share?
Well, we have to have choice. We can't. What was really odd about the whole COVID thing, especially in New York, they came down so hard and they took the people out of the equation. And then 3 or 4 years later, you have Governor Cuomo stepping back and saying, well, they couldn't enforce anything. Meanwhile, they were fining people. And, it's like, it's amazing when you think about it. He should have had that conversation, in my opinion, then and there and gave people the choice to
Sure.
do things. But don't tell me 4 years later that it was a choice.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah.
you know,
It
they made
definitely,
it sound
yeah,
like a mandates. You had to follow these
absolutely.
rules and all of that.
It definitely was. The pandemic was definitely an opportunity to see how far we could push people in the fact that, okay, how much liberty, freedom can we take from them in order for them to feel like we're telling them they'll be safer. You'll be safer if you don't meet at Thanksgiving with your family. You'll be safer if you aren't allowed to go to the hospital room to see a dying spouse on their deathbed. You'll be safer if you wear these masks. You'll be safer if you, socially distance, and all of these things we're finding out now were all a bunch of bunk. I mean, it absolutely was. That's not tinfoil hat stuff. I mean, just and then again, so liberty. That's a basis. That's in our Declaration, in our Constitution. The inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that's one for sure. Liberty. Anything else?
Everything was, and also everything, a lot of this stuff was made up. And the sad part about it maybe initially when COVID was evolving early on, people were afraid, and I understand that.
Sure.
But, eventually I done a lot of research and looked into things, and I was not fearing. I put my faith in my Lord Jesus Christ. So no vaccine or anything. I chose not to take it. And I was employed by myself. So, but I had a lot of empathy for police officers, nurses, and people that were pregnant at the time that were forced to take it. I have cousins that have miscarriages, and I'm not saying it was totally caused by the vaccine. There is no proof there, but the point is their jobs squeezed them. The HEPA laws were flushed down the toilet.
Right.
And because of the emergency, most of our governors became dictators, in my opinion. And it just shed a terrible light on America. America's always been a place for people to come to for opportunity, to build businesses, build families, and all of a sudden that was just taken away from us.
Right.
And it was wrong, and it should not happen again.
Right. So, and that's a crucial point, because if we don't remember the history, as the old statement goes, right, we're doomed to repeat it again. So, what are some thoughts that you have as far as your involvement in your community, your county, and now this position on a state liaison kind of level there? What are some thoughts that you've had about some of the things that we could somehow bring up? I love the idea when you talk about things. You keep that open mind, and you're able to bring things to discussion. It's just not my way or the highway kind of thing.
Exactly.
So, some thoughts looking back. What should we do if like we're seeing with some other things coming from a tyrannical federal government? What can we do on our level here?
Well, first of all, you have to know possibly what could be coming, and you have to prepare for the storm. Florida is always prepared for hurricanes, but we have a hurricane coming, a tyrannical hurricane on the horizon from the huge powers to be that want the world to go a certain way.
Right.
Technology in it of itself, AI and facial recognition cameras, they're all well and good if they're used the proper way, but they could be abused, and not for central bank digital currency. Digital identity is one area that needs to be looked at and addressed, because that's the next step that certain people might use against populations of the world. All the information is out there. It's not tinfoil hat. It's probably way higher than the position that I have right now, but it interests me that conversations need to take place and make sure that we keep our liberties and basically we have to be, how do I say it? Florida has to be independent of the federal government. The federal government, in my opinion, that's a tough nut to crack.
Right.
It is what it is. We do need to work with them, but the state has a lot of power,
Right.
and it needs to be sovereign. All of our states have to be sovereign, and it's important for all of us to do that
Yeah.
and work towards that goal. So, again, some people feel that certain topics are unapproachable. In all honesty, this job is not about me. It's about my children, my future grandchildren,
Right.
and all of ours. In order for us to keep our freedom,
Right.
we need to have the conversation.
Yeah. That's a great point. So again, it's about education. I think that's
Yes.
one of our biggest assets and goals here on this local level is to educate the folks around us, whether it be at meetings or committees or whatever it is on this local level, to be able to do the research and be able to educate. And come up with this declaration, kind of like we talked about with our founding. There was 27 grievances that the founding fathers literally wrote out in the Declaration of Independence. And when it came time to do the Constitutional Convention, they did that to make sure that those grievances again, wouldn't come up. That we would have defense against them. One of those is what you just mentioned about the state power. Now, it's called the 10th Amendment, and it's a simple one sentence amendment. Excuse me. And this is what it says: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So again, what does that mean? Well, in all of our Constitution classes, as we have taught them for over 6-7 years now, we go through the Constitution. Excuse me, and it tells us what the government can, the powers they have, and what the government cannot do. And if you're confused about what they cannot do, go back and look at the Declaration again and look at the 27 things, the abuses that the king did that the founding fathers pointed out. And whatever's not allotted as a power in our Constitution, the government should not be engaged in it. That power needs to come back to the church. I mean, to church and state, to the state, yeah. So thinking about that, you go back to the Roe v. Wade decision from a year or two ago, and the false narrative out there was, Roe v. Wade just got overturned, abortion is illegal. Well, that was a lie. But people were running the streets thinking that, no, this is what's happened, All that did was bring that whole thought of abortion back to a state level, because there's nothing in particular in the Constitution that delegates the authority for the federal government to go ahead and do that. And of course, it wasn't done by an amendment, was it? Back it was just a court decision, so it wasn't even an amendment. So of course, it had to go back to the state level. So again, we find these things out in our arena where we live, and again, we try to address them. We want to educate about them. Some other thoughts about, in particular, that you have with some things that you've seen that you've educated or have become educated about, and things that you want to get out there and share with people as well.
Well, basically, I sense a lot of anxiousness in people that I'm meeting. People really want answers from their elected officials. I think it's imperative for all of our elected officials to get ahead of this future curve that the world is facing. It's okay to have conversation. It's okay to take stands. sometimes I feel that our representatives, for whatever reason, stand back and they're sort of in the background a little too much. And I think that it's, in all honesty, they need to get ahead of all these issues and they need to be upfront with them. For me, a layman who doesn't have a specialty in world affairs, I have a pretty good education on where we're going. And I think it's their obligation to confront all of these things
Right.
if they want America to be free and prosperous going forward. Fear not, only believe, regardless of the powers to be. If they have a dream to keep America free for their children and grandchildren, they cannot ignore the things that, for example, happened with the vaccine. I mean, there have been injuries and things like this, and I've had a lot of empathy towards people who have gotten hurt by this. So, but when you can count on your fingers a number of people that really speak about it. I don't like the fact that all of this was incentivized by the federal government.
Sure.
I think that was really wrong because they took, again, choice out of it. And most people at the time that this was happening didn't see what was going on. Regardless of whether it was legal for them to do that, I just think it was the wrong thing to do. And it almost seemed like the music sort of was playing the same all over the world.
Right.
So, but whatever.
Yeah. So
that's past. We have to learn from our past.
Definitely have to.
We have to go forward. We have to look in the mirror. And there's a lot of work to do on many different issues.
Yeah.
So, again, a lot of that stuff is probably past what I could do, but I really do feel strongly about it. And I have no problem confronting our representatives, and it offers me an opportunity to have conversation, which I enjoy.
And again, I think all that goes back to the idea of being able to educate wherever we are, whatever we do. Part of our job as elected officials is to be able to educate. And of course, it's part of our founding, to be able to have that good education. And of course, we did a whole deep dive study about real American education going back and found out that, hey, this has got to be based in the Word of God. He's got to be the foundation for all of this. You have the second president, the prayer we just read about him praying to God that there'd only be wise people living in this house. He's the same person who wrote about the Constitution, that it was made for a moral and religious people. And we can see the demise of many things that have happened in our country because of those founding beliefs, those founding doctrines and teachings of understanding that there is morality, there is absolute truth, and that we can't make good and right choices without having the wisdom from God, really. So it's exciting to see you getting involved. It's exciting to see you, do what you're doing. And for the last few minutes we have, give us your stump speech. Tell us why do people need to get out? Because this is a big deal. This is a big position. It's unpaid, of course. It's a volunteer position, but it's a very important position in the whole dynamic of this county level and the state level. And it's a 4-year term. You get voted upon by all the people in Indian River County. Right now, I think the numbers are something like 58,000 or more are registered Republicans. There's about 26,000, I think, NPAs and another 25,000 Dems. So when you come to August primary, and you want folks that are NPAs or maybe even some Dems. We see a lot of Democrats are switching party now because they see that, they say the old statement that Ronald Reagan said, "I didn't leave the Democrat Party, it left me." It just becomes it's gone so far left and so extreme that there is really no middle of the road anymore. You're either on one side or the other, and it's caused this great divide. So why do the folks need to get out? They need to be educated. Why they need to vote for Izzy?
Oh, they need to vote for me because I have strong conviction towards the future of our country, and my young children and the country that they're going to live in. We cannot allow technology even to take over totally. AI, a lot of people have questions about. We need to start having the conversations about how it's going to change all of our lives, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. This has nothing to do with parties.
Mm-hmm.
The things that are happening at the higher levels, everybody's going to be affected by it. And I think by jumping into the ring, so to speak, and being state committee man, it offers me an opportunity to reach out even over the aisle on occasion and address a lot of issues because all of the people that are running are going to be faced with all of these issues. And I enjoy having that opportunity to find out information for them and making a difference and seeing whether or not we don't turn into a 15-minute city,
Right.
which some
Right.
people feel is imaginary.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. Just do your research.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think conversation is extremely important. I think having an opinion is important. I think all opinions should be heard. If we hear one another, we can agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get back to that. This whole idea of canceling people needs to stop because it's just unproductive.
Right.
Just because you have the power to cancel whether whoever's canceling whoever on Facebook, that doesn't make it right. People need to be heard. We must not lose our freedom of speech, whether through a TikTok bill or whatever. People need to be engaged because there are a lot of things in these bills that people are unaware of.
Right.
And it's important, again, to have conversations. It's important to contact your representatives. They're only going to act when we act as civilians and get engaged and get educated, as Pastor John said.
Yeah.
But in closing, the churches need to get involved. I don't think it's an option not to have an opinion. Now, a lot of people think there's a separation of church and state. There's a debate there.
I've looked through here. I don't see it.
Pastor John, well, whatever. I think they serve a great purpose. There's a gentleman out of Canada, Arthur Pulaski. He's an amazing gentleman that kept his church open. They put him in solitary confinement. These are the things that are happening in our world. Police should never have that kind of power. Government can never have that kind of power. It's important to understand that we must take our power back, not violently, not physically.
Right.
Nobody wants a civil war. That must not happen, period. Nobody wants a fight with the federal government, but we have to fight with dialogue.
Right.
And be open-minded and agree to disagree and settle on different things.
Right.
So that's really what I believe.
Yeah, a couple of recent films that we saw that really helped educate us was, of course, policestatefilm.net was a big one that we were actually in the movie theaters with that one. And, of course, Letter to the American Church was another big one that we're going to continue to show these at local venues, churches, wherever we can. Some big things coming up calendar-wise. Again, it's part of people getting out, meeting candidates, asking questions, and so forth. So next Wednesday, I'll have Kevin McDonald here, who was appointed school board member here in Indian River County. He'll also be one of the folks comes, I think 6 or so people coming next Friday the 24th to the Conservative Watch, kind of a meet and greet Our tax collector, Carol Jean Jordan, she's going to be the main speaker there, and the other candidates are going to speak as well. That's a Friday night. Saturday is the Truth Fest up in Melbourne. It's going to go be back at the Brevard Government Center, and that's I got to do the kickoff MC of that whole event and speak back in January. That's an awesome event that takes place up in Brevard County, and that's at 6 o'clock Saturday, May 25th. And then that's going to be like Patriot Weekend because, again, that following Sunday is our fourth Sunday. And, of course, everybody knows that's Patriot Church Sunday, fire cake breakfast at 8:30, and then service at 10 o'clock there as well. So a lot of things to do. Again, we've got to get engaged. I appreciate you mentioning the part about the church because that's key. As a pastor, reading through the history of it all, I can give you time and time again. I can give you so many names of how the churches and the pastors. The one this morning I read to the kids about John Witherspoon, the pastor from Scotland who came over, and he became president of the College of New Jersey, which became Princeton University. And again, that whole idea of those foundings, and there was an actual story about bringing politics into the pulpit. He says, it's right and lawful for me to do this now because I got to warn the people. I've got to warn the people what's going on here. So it's right there in the midst of the battle and the of our independence. And so, again, we've got to get involved. The folks in the church have got to step forward. We've got to get to the basic beliefs of what our Declaration says. Our inalienable rights come from God, not from government. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you could just focusing on those three issues, those three foundational truths, you can make good and right choices when need be. So, well, brother, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
And look forward to working together with you even more as we move forward. And great days ahead. And I've been telling folks we got to win 2024 victory 2024. So God bless you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Any questions, comments? Send me a note to patriotchurch@gmail.com. Tonight we'll be back again for Constitution study starting around 6:50.